first of all, welcome to the Conscious Leadership Podcast. And I feel very blessed and honored to have you with me, Connirae, in this episode, because I came across your work, long years ago when I was practicing and reading about the core transformation process. And then you came to Germany a few years ago, introducing your new work, the Wholeness Work. And without giving away too much, I know that the Wholeness Work and your whole personal story is very much connected. So maybe you can first give us a bit of information about yourself, your heritage, and how you developed the Wholeness Work.
Yes. I'd love to do that. Thank you, Angela. Yes, first, it's been a pleasure for me also to connect with you and also the others, your colleagues in Germany and in Austria and in Europe. It's been really a delightful connection to be working there also. So I want to say that. So how did Wholeness Work come about? You're sort of asking that, and what my background my background is NLP. Well, originally I was training to be a clinical psychologist in a traditional graduate program. I got a little bit sidetracked with NLP, we could say. And I got very much taken. My husband, Steve Andreas, and I together were partners. And we did a lot with NLP. And at first we were just learning. It was a new field. It was exciting. It was much more about noticing results in experience. The idea that you could work with the structure of experience in a really precise way and get changes right in the moment. This was new. And it was exciting. So first on my path, I was a learner, and I absorbed, learned and experimented, tried everything out. And that was very fun. Then I got to the point after a while, I came to a time when I realized that I was always the tough client. So these methods I was learning, they seemed to be working well with my clients. They seemed to be working great with workshop participants, but they didn't really work very well for me. And at first I didn't really want to admit this, but then finally, from my perspective now, I realize this ends up being a strength because it led me to realize that something deeper was needed for people like me. And what this led to was two change methodologies that now I realize they take us to a different level of transformation. They actually take us into different territory in the psyche and allow us for a more fundamental change, so that even with people who aren't difficult like I was, even for just easy people, it can provide a deeper level change. So I guess both core transformation, to say a little more, both core transformation and the Wholeness Work came from crises in my own life. Issue with core transformation, that was a time when I was unsettled about certain things and I wasn't finding anything could be helpful with me. And I ended up finding core transformation. It actually, Milton Erickson has a place in this story too. I don't know if you want me to go into that much detail.
I think as Milton Erickson is still very well known, especially in our heritage of coaching and hypnotherapy, I think it's your story. It's really interesting how you still got to know him, right? I mean, you learned from him.
Yes, I had the good fortune to be able to spend 2 weeks with him as a part of a small teaching group. So in the last years of Erickson's life, he was primarily working with groups of therapists. And so I went down as a part of one of these small groups. There were 10 or 12 of us in the room, and sitting in a circle in his office, and Erickson would be telling these stories about his clients, but you always had the feeling more is going on. And it was quite an interesting experience. The second time I went down, I asked if he would work with me privately, because it was a time when like I was mentioning, I was at a crossroads. This had to do with my relationship, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know with Steve and I would should we get married? Should we go forward and really do the whole thing, or should we go part ways and we, things weren't just compatible enough? Which would be best? And I was very, for some people, perhaps that would be an easy decision. It definitely wasn't for me. I I
I
was
relate to that.
agonizing, going, and no decision seemed right, and if so I went there and asked, will you work with me privately? And Erickson looked on the very first day of this week-long training. I asked, will you work with me privately? And I was very nervous to ask. But Erickson, he looks back at me with his kind eyes, and he nods and he says, yes. And he's got this big smile. But then he looks away, he turns away, and there's nothing about my next step. Like, how do I set up the appointment? And I was very confused. And that was the theme, Then we all were ushered into the small room where we all, the 10 or 12 of us were sitting around in a circle, and he starts telling his stories. And I'm just thinking, well, when is he going to work with me? How do I set this up? And we went through this whole song and dance about that. I won't tell you all the back and forth, but I've written this up in more detail. It's on the website, thewholenesswork.org, under articles, and it's under origin. You can find it there, the whole story. Because it was there was a lot of artistry that went into what Erickson did with me that I had no idea at the time. I was studying NLP, but I really didn't get what he was doing with me. But I did get that on the very last day, finally, after I'd given up that anything would happen, because he kept doing these things like, he'd tell the whole group, oh, I just got a letter last week that my license to do individual therapy has expired. And then he'd laugh, and I'd be going, oh no, he's not going to work with me. And then I would try to act like a good volunteer subject, so maybe he would pick me, but he didn't. And then finally he picked me, but nothing happened. And so there was this whole song and dance about trying to get him to work with me individually. And then finally, on the very last day, I totally gave up. And I thought, okay, he's not really going to work with me. I may as well just not try to go into a trance or be a good hypnotic subject or anything. Instead, I'm just going to watch what he does with everyone else. I'll watch the messages he marks out, because I could follow some of it, or at least I thought I was. And then about an hour and a half into the session, all of a sudden I was sitting there, and it felt like something came over me, and I felt like I was literally a different person, because I felt so different than I'd ever felt before in my life. And it was this feeling of well-being, of really, really deep well-being, and okayness, and not just okayness in myself, but also knowing that everything was fine and everything would be fine. So
Wow.
At that moment, I thought, I was going, whoa, this is strange. What just happened? And did he have something to do with it? And then Erickson looked at me at that same moment, and he said, and your unconscious mind has just made an important decision. And I thought, oh, okay, so he does know, and then I'm going, but I thought about this decision to make in my relationship, and I'm thinking, I have no idea what I'll do. And he said, and you don't know what it is. So it was kind of like he was just tracking my thought process and responding. And then I thought to myself, but I have the feeling it's somehow resolved. Like I'll know what to do when the time is right. And I was thinking, and if he would ask me for a session, I don't know if I would have anything to work with. And then he looked at me and he said, and do you still feel the need to work with me privately? So and then we all just laughed. Everyone in the group, he laughed, I laughed, we all just laughed. because so it was quite an amazing experience. And then over the next 2 weeks, I felt this percolation inside of me. Literally, something was viscerally happening. I didn't know what it was, but there was this feeling of well-being, and I knew that when the time was right, I would know what to do. And in about 2 weeks' time, I had some clarity. I knew what to do, and I knew it became clear to me that there were certain things that would need to be the case for this relationship to really be on track and work for me. And so I could state that clearly to Steve, and also tell him, if it doesn't fit for you, then I will understand, and it will mean we're on different paths here. But I knew what was necessary for the path to fit for me. And that was a kind of clarity I don't think I'd ever felt before in my life. And also a kind of being able to say this and leave the other person in freedom, not to feel like there were any emotional hooks to try to get him to do what I want him to do. It was more like, here's what is your need, what fits for you, and is there something that fits here for both of us? So
when I listen to you, it feels like somehow an inner freedom without any attachment in that.
Yes, exactly. And a clarity about what to do on the outside, as well as this feeling of freedom and well-being and wholeness, I guess, on the inside. But the only problem was that this well-being that I had, and when I had it, it seemed like, how could I ever feel any other way? This seems so completely like, why would I ever feel anything other than this? And yet, within a few months, it started unraveling. And I went back to my old ways, and I felt more attachment again, and I felt more emotional plugins and so on. So that left me with this quandary. Well, I knew what was possible now, and I wondered how could I get that back. So I devoted a lot of I tried to find a way back in lots and lots of different ways, and finally it led me to core transformation. And that came about because I decided, okay, I know I'm a tough client. Other people are easier than I am. So I'm going to work with other people, but ask to see people with their life's biggest issue where they've tried everything and nothing has worked. Wow. So far. So I made that announcement. And then the first person that came in, and he had this strong issue. And I had no idea what I would do. I just said to him, the only thing I know is that I won't do anything that I know to do already. So, and you and I will talk, and when you have what you want, then you can go home. And I told him sort of joking, but that's what happened. It came out pretty much all in that first session. It just came out. And I think it was this combination of letting go of everything I knew, or at least that was my intention, but also this deep longing for something that was deeper and farther and more fundamentally transformative than anything we had so far in the field. Those two things together that led me to core transformation. And also the willingness to, I think, make mistakes, to just do something, to be on unfamiliar turf and not know where it was going to go.
I think Connirae,
but then
so I just wanted to say,
go ahead, Angela.
If you're describing it like this, I feel, this is exactly what we're currently talking about in business and in this whole world, the capability to go along with the unknown, not really knowing what is happening next, and also letting go of all our thought process and patterns and the thinking mind, and just really trusting that there is something deeper that will emerge once we're not so busy with our thinking mind trying to figure it out. So I think how you describe it is such an essential way of being in this world, especially also at the moment. So I think it's a very nice story that shows exactly this mindset and attitude.
Yes, thank you. And it definitely was a shift for me. I felt like I was venturing into new territory with in doing this. And then a number of years later, it was about 7 or 8 years later, um, through another crisis, I went even farther into that territory. And that's what led to what I now call the wholeness work that that I think is our main subject of conversation
Yes,
today. Yeah, and
I
here,
have. Yeah,
yeah,
I had to add on that note that I did an interview with Tamara as well on the core transformation process. So, in case some people are watching and saying, "Oh, I also want to know what this process is about," and we want to focus on the wholeness work in this episode. And yeah, please just go ahead with how you came across this work or how you started developing it, because I think it's, yeah, I will say later on more about how
yeah.
it affected my life, but
Okay, yes, this came about because of out of another difficult time in my life. This was perhaps even more difficult time. I started experiencing a health crisis, a very much disruption. It felt to me like my body was starting to shut down. I don't know how else to describe it. It stopped. It felt like my body was stopping working, and in more specific detail, I can't describe it was just a bizarre experience. But I started feeling like 24/7, as if I had this electricity running up and down my central column, along the front. And it was as if it felt like it felt so strong and so real that it seemed like if I would look in the mirror, surely I would see this fountain of sparks coming out the top of my head. It should look literally like a fountain because that's what it felt like. And I didn't know what it was, but it felt it also, the analogy came to me. It feels like maybe I'm wired for 110 current, but I'm getting 220 or maybe a lot more than that, you know. So and I thought it was so intense and so strong. I didn't know if my physical body could endure it. I really didn't know if it was too much for the physical body to withstand. And so I thought I actually might be dying. And that led to a different kind of desperation, I guess. Or and I say desperation because it perhaps gives I think it was because of the desperation that again it led me to be really willing to give up everything I knew at this point, also letting go even the core transformation work, which had gotten me a long ways. I'd gotten a lot of benefit from it. That was the first work that when I applied it to myself, it did make changes for me. And I felt myself, I used it as a daily practice for years, and it was very helpful, very transformative. But then I was having this new level of disruption occurring. Um, and I didn't know what to do. The medical doctors didn't have any solutions. I was so sensitive to stimulation, it was difficult for me to do anything or go anywhere. Um, and I wrote more about this also in that Origins article. There's more detail on it. But maybe it's enough to just say in my search, I thought again, if I'm going to have a chance of surviving, I think I need to let go of everything I think I know, everything, and I need to somehow again find something that goes deeper and farther. And so that's what I did. And part of that exploration was thinking, okay, what about spiritual teachers? Do they know something that might be helpful in my search? And they describe experiencing it in a different way than we do in NLP or in coaching or in therapy. But I've tried the coaching and therapy and NLP and even my own core transformation, and I feel I need something more now. So where am I going to find it? So I thought perhaps I need to let go of everything. I stopped being a teacher. There's no way I could have taught at that. I was not functional enough. My mind didn't work. The electricity going through was so disruptive. It was difficult to think much. so so it wasn't fun. It wasn't a pleasant experience. And once a good friend, actually a medical doctor who's also a good friend, he said to me, Connirae, has it ever occurred to you that this might be an awakening? And I said, no, this couldn't possibly be an awakening, because an awakening, that should be pleasant, right? and and then I started reading these accounts that for some people it wasn't. It was quite disruptive, what they called awakening. And it was actually through studying and sitting with spiritual teachers that became the inspiration for what eventually was the wholeness work. But what I found was that, spiritual teachers, they'll talk about awakening and consciousness, and you're talking about conscious leadership. They talk about awakening, and I think they use this word like awakening because there's a recognition somehow what's happening is beyond our ability to describe. We can't explain it in our usual terms. It's a really fundamental shift, and we don't know what the heck it is and how to talk. We don't know how it happened. So spiritual teachers end up using words that aren't very precise, and something like awakening or a shift in consciousness. And it is an attempt to describe something very significant and fundamental that does happen sometimes. But I started noticing that in the spiritual circles, there weren't really systematic or precise ways to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I started wondering. The spiritual teachers I was involved with were saying, you can't turn this into steps. It's not possible. But I started wondering, is that really true? Or might it be possible if we to understand the structure of this in a way that doesn't diminish it, but allows it to become more reliable and predictable? So that's what led to the wholeness work. Because I do want to say, I think that the spiritual teachers, when they say you can't turn this into steps, that comes out of most attempts, I think, to turn spiritual teachings into steps or don't really work. The steps come out of a model that's from a previous stage of consciousness, not from the awakened consciousness. So for the steps to work, they have to come out of the awakened consciousness. And yet, it's easy for someone in the awakened consciousness to just enjoy it and not have any idea how they got there. So I think this is where, because I had a lot of background in NLP, I think this ended up helping me to notice the pathway.
How exciting. And when I listen to you, I think what for me also is the main differentiation is that we're not speaking about a stage that you're reaching either once in your lifetime or never, and then you're in it all the time. But when you talk about steps to get there, there might be times in your life when you're in that state and other times when you're not. And this is also okay and a possibility, because I remember when I started reading a lot about awakening and consciousness, and I was reading all the books of Eckhart Tolle, for example, I always had this feeling that maybe one day in my life, I will get to this point where then everything will change and I might be in a totally different state of mind and consciousness, and that this will stay and this will go on like this. So it's either black or white. And this is what I also really, love about your work, that in every minute of my life, I have the chance to go into this state. And there are also a lot of moments when I'm not into the state and when I'm triggered by anything that happens in my outside world and within me.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's very, when I first encountered the steps that became the wholeness, when I first thought of them, the shift for me was so small that I thought I must not be on the right track. Because I had read also these accounts like of awakening, like, oh, it's a one-time thing, it's dramatic, it's just like all at once. And what I want to say is that those are the accounts that get publishers willing to publish books. They're dramatic. People like to read those dramatic accounts, but that's not how it actually goes for most people. And all of the true spiritual, who I consider the true spiritual teachers, they also understand that and they teach that. They teach that they recognize that for most people, awakening is a gradual process, and that even for people who have these sudden shift experiences, they've usually had many, many incremental small shifts happening, very gradual, that build, and then this other shift happens. It sets the groundwork for a bigger shift, and then there might be many, many small shifts, and then maybe a bigger shift. So this is how I've come to think of awakening after doing the wholeness work for longer. And I've come to think, yes, it is the same territory the spiritual teachers are talking about. And I've had, there's one spiritual teacher I discussed this with, and yeah, she said, yeah, that's the same territory. It's very important to understand that it's, for most people, a gradual process. What becomes different with the wholeness work is that it becomes a reliable way that we can keep making progress along this path. And it's a reliable way, as you mentioned. It's not about, like, sometimes I've had longtime meditators come to me. People have meditated 30 years or more, and then they do the wholeness work with me. And some of them say, wow, I've meditated so long, and I know in meditation I can go into that state, but in my meditation it was disconnected from reality or from real life, daily life, day to day. So I still get my buttons pushed in daily life, even though I can go into that state. And what's different with the wholeness work is that it's not a separate thing, that each time we get our buttons pushed in daily life, each time we feel stressed about something or reactive emotionally, that becomes the doorway to the state in a really simple, fairly quick process most of the time. Yeah, it's quite fun. I find it quite fun, I guess.
I can fully relate to that. And I mean, since knowing the work, I just really started experimenting in my daily life. And from moments like last week, I was sitting at the dentist, and I really don't like being at the dentist. So when you hear all these noises from all these machines, and I thought, oh, that's a perfect opportunity, because my whole system was so stressed and contracted. So I started doing the wholeness work, and it was just really this very nice, calm, subtle shift. And I really realized how my whole system relaxed, and I was so in peace, and really not even recognizing anymore what the dentist was doing, in a totally different state. And I think for me, very often, it's what you're describing when I'm in these normal day-to-day situations, and then being able to have, and I would really say it's for me like a toolkit, a method and a toolkit to then shift, to shift my state, to become more relaxed again, to have more inner freedom also in conversations with other people, when I feel I'm very much contracted because my mind wants to push something, or I want to convince someone, and then I feel this contraction, and doing the work, it immediately brings a whole new energy to the conversation as well. So yeah, I think that's really what is so helpful and relevant for our day-to-day life with this process.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that example. And I want to say too, especially for people who are familiar with mindfulness and or meditation, a lot of people who have used not everyone, but a lot of people who've used mindfulness and meditation have told me that they feel like that has been a struggle for them, because those teachings often involve shifting attention in a way that doesn't fully include every aspect of what's happening in the moment. So the whole, this is hard to really, you have to really learn it to understand the difference. But after doing the wholeness work, they usually, it's only after they do the second exercise on the meditation format, people will come up to me and go, wow, this is so different. I don't have to fight with anything anymore. I don't have to try to return my attention to the breath. I don't have to try to let go of any thoughts. It's really, it really includes everything.
So, Connirae, I'm wondering because I mean there is so much depth to the work, of course, in so many different formats. And at the same time, I'm wondering how can we explain to people who have not yet experienced the wholeness work what it actually is, because we're speaking about it and already about the benefits. But how would you explain to someone who asks you what is the wholeness work? What would be your explanation?
Would you like, I can come up with an explanation, or if you'd like, we could do a guided experience. I don't know if we have enough time for a guided experience. What do you think?
Of course, I would love the guided experience.
Okay.
Because, yeah, this I have to say is also something, and I know there are people watching who, might be coming to one of your online courses or also in-person workshops. And the one thing that I really admire about your teaching is that you always bring in direct experience.
Yes.
That you're not these teachers who just explain stuff in a theoretical way. But I remember being on your first foundation workshop, and anyone who was asking a question, every time your answer was, let's go through the experience and not talk so much about it. And I think this is so helpful because we all learn by experience, right? So
right. Yeah. Okay. Lovely. We'll do that. We'll do that. And if it doesn't quite click, because I'm going to go through it kind of quickly, if it ends up confusing, then I just want everyone to know you can find a more detailed introduction on our website at andreasnlp.com. And under free, there's a free webinar on the wholeness work. So, and you may have some other resources for people to check too. But let's get started then. And I want to say that so the wholeness work came out of this spiritual teaching, a key spiritual teaching about dissolving the ego or letting go of the ego. And it's common in Eastern spirituality. Pretty much everyone, all the main teachers in Eastern spirituality say that awakening happens when we dissolve the ego. So I started thinking, but what is the ego? How do we know what that is? And I thought, okay, the simplest answer is that it's the I. So an I is a word that we use all the time in every sentence. Not every sentence, excuse me, but many sentences. I think it's the most used word in any language is I, because we are speaking from, I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to plan something, I'm going to rest, whatever I'm going to do, or I feel this way, or I think this way. So I comes up a lot. But how do we find the I in experience? So shall we play with this a little bit? Okay.
Yes.
And then I want to say, after we do the experiment, I'll talk a little bit more about where this leads and the benefits, because we really haven't gotten in detail about the benefits. And there are lots and lots of benefits. For me, it's changed every aspect of my life. And I've had business consultants and coaches, executive coaches tell me this gives them really amazing ability to meet the needs of their clients much more rapidly and on point than they had before. So, but let's start with the experience. So the easiest way to access this is to just maybe take a deep breath, close our eyes even, or with eyes open, just start by noticing any sensation in the body. And it doesn't have to be a problem, but it could be a problem. Right now, I notice this sensation on the top of my thighs. And I might notice, and that's enough. It could be, sometimes I notice something in my abdomen or in my chest, or it could just be noticing where your arms touch the chair or where your legs touch the bottom of the chair. Anything at all. So do you have something? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to go with this top of the sensation on the top of my thighs. And those following along, everyone listening and watching, notice what sensation in your body is easy to notice, and notice where it's located. And then notice about how much area does this take up. So for me, the sensation in my thighs, it's like two ovals across both of my thighs, going in maybe an inch. And how about for you?
For me, it's a feeling at the on my back, and it's like the area the size of a tennis ball.
Okay, great, great. Yeah. So it could be any size, it could be any shape. And now what we do is sense in and through the area and notice the sensation quality. So for example, there might be a feeling of warmth, there might be a sense of coolness, it might be vibrating, it might be still, but just sensing in and through. And I'm getting a little bit of a prickly or buzzly feeling. It's hard to put into words, and you don't have to have the right words. And what do you notice, Angela?
For me, it's like a pulsing or contracting in a certain rhythm.
Okay, lovely. This contraction in a certain rhythm, a pulsing to it. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. And those watching and listening, whatever you notice, the thing is, there's no wrong answer to this. It's whatever you notice in your experience. So now we could say, each of us could say, and it would be true, and it might be easiest to close your eyes to do this. We could say, and it'd be true, I am aware of this sensation. So I am aware of this sensation. For me, it's in my legs. For Angela, it's in the back area. And for you, it's wherever each of you, it's wherever it is. So, but you can think the thought, I am aware of this sensation. And as you notice the sensation that you're aware of, then we ask the question, and where's the I that notices this? Where's the I that's aware of this sensation? And just go with the first location that comes to mind. So, and I'm going to do this along with you. So I go, where is the I that notices this sensation? And what's coming to me now is it's this sort of area on the left side of my head, part in my head, part outside of my head, about this big around. And what for you?
For me, it's an area behind myself that is a bit larger, a bit higher than myself, but yeah, very close behind myself.
Okay, lovely, lovely. And for those of you following along with the exercise, whatever you noticed is fine. Sometimes they're in the body, sometimes they're outside of the body. If it's in the body, it might be in the head, it might be in the chest, it might be in the torso. Once I even had somebody notice it was in one of his toes. A little unusual, but not very often, but it's fine, you know. And then, or often it's around the head somewhere. As for Angela, she's saying it's close but behind the head. Some people it's far away. It might be 3 feet away, it might be a mile away, or a kilometer away. It could even be as if it's on another continent or even on another galaxy. I had one man who said it's as if it's from another galaxy. I thought, oh yeah, that is far away. I said, what is it, a foot, a mile, 5 miles? He goes, no, it's like another galaxy. I go, oh, okay. And wherever it is for you in this moment, this is fine. So just noticing where it is. And if you're not sure, just guess. We can, in the training, we help people who, if it's difficult to find the location, we can, there are ways to help with this, but for now, just guess, and that works fine. Now, with whatever the area it is, whether it's behind, in front, inside, sense in and through the space, sensing in and through the area of the eye. What's the sensation quality? So for example, it might be warm, it might be cool, it might be a sense of denseness, or there might be sort of an open airiness. There might be a lightness or darkness, or a lightness or heaviness. It could be vibrating, it could be still. So sensing in and through the space, what's the sensation quality? And for you, Angela, what do you notice?
For me, it's cool and very soft and very airy.
Okay, lovely. Cool and soft and airy. And for me, I notice part of it is sort of airy and almost like there's a invisible light or glow. And then part of it on the bottom is more dense, and it's more like it's a darker color. It's more grayish, and it's almost like it's a cloud, kind of misty or a little more dense than a misty cloud, perhaps. So that's what I'm noticing in this moment. And I just want you to know, want everyone to know again, there's no right or wrong answer. Whatever you sense is exactly right. There's no better or worse answer. The best answer is what you actually find. And okay, lovely. And so now, ready to go the next step? You and I are, right? And hopefully everyone watching and listening too. So let's go back to that sentence we started with. I am aware of this sensation. So we found, we know about the sensation. We know where it's located. We know its sensation quality. We know about the eye. We've investigated that. We know where it's located. We know its size and shape. We know its sensation quality. But what about this middle word, awareness? I am aware of this sensation. So what is this awareness in experience? And here's where I like to guide people a little bit in how how it works to experience awareness in the way that it's effective for this process. Because I've discovered that people actually do have different meanings to that word, and there's a particular experience of awareness that makes a difference and works for this process. And I'll guide you in that right now. So that is basically we can investigate and notice right now that awareness is already through our body. So we know this because we noticed that sensation we started with. We couldn't have noticed that if awareness wasn't already through the body. And if somebody bumped me on the shoulder, I would automatically notice. There'd be just this automatic recognition. So awareness is already through the body, and we can just sense that now. And by awareness, I mean the capacity to experience. The capacity to experience. This is already in and through the body. Then it's also through the space. This capacity to experience is also in the space all around us. And we can investigate this also, because if I make a sound, I snap my fingers on the left, there's an automatic receiving of the sound. It just kind of is automatically received. If I snap my fingers on the right, there's an automatic receiving of the sound. And if there's a sound above, behind, in front, any direction, if somebody were to call my name, there would be an automatic receiving of the sound. And I wouldn't have to go send out awareness. It's already there. So when somebody calls my name, it's not like I have to send awareness out to go, oh, maybe somebody's calling my name. I better send the awareness out there to meet it so that I can hear. No, it's automatic. There's this automatic receiving of the sound in an easy way. So, and there's no edge or border to this capacity to experience that's all around. It's like if a sound, there's no place where I know if the sound happened on the other side of this border, I wouldn't be able to hear it. So in fact, I know that if a sound was happening on the other side of the earth right now, probably I would not hear this sound. I know that in my mind. But in terms of my subjective experience in this moment, I can't find any place where there's a border where I can go, oh, if the sound was on the other side of that line, I wouldn't hear it. I can't find an edge in my subjective experience, and that's what's important. So right now we can all just kind of take a moment to appreciate the subjective experience of this awareness, this capacity to experience, that we can feel that there's this awareness through our body. I can feel that right now. And right now I can experience this capacity to notice that's also all around and throughout in every direction, all around and through every direction. There's a sense of space that's simultaneously everywhere at once. That's right. And that's the field. We can think of this as a field of awareness or just awareness. So now let's go back to the to the eye that we found a moment ago. All of us found it. Mine was here, yours was behind you, and everyone on the call, it is where it is. So if you notice where the eye is for you right now, and notice sensing in and through, notice the sensation quality, whatever it is, if it's warm, if it's cool, if it's buzzy, if it's still, if it's dense, if it's open and airy, soft or sort of more rough, however it is, there can be a sensing of the aliveness here. And now notice what happens when the sensation here in the area of the eye, when the sensation of the eye is invited to open and relax in and as the whole field of awareness that's all around and throughout. And there can just be a breathing into this and allowing this to happen however it happens. And I'll say it again. It's something you don't need to think through. You don't need to put any effort in. You just notice what happens when the sensation of the eye is invited to open and relax, to dissolve and melt in and as the full field of awareness that's all around and throughout. And then we just allow it to happen, whatever happens. And for each person, it's different. For some people, it might be nothing happened. That's fine. For some people, it might be a lot happened. And for some people, there might be a shift that's quite subtle, like happened for me the first time I tried this. So how is it, what happens for you this time, Angela?
I realized that my breathing became much deeper, and it felt like my sensation was expanding into the room. So it felt in a way more grounded and peaceful at the same time. I feel much more calm and peaceful at the moment than before.
Beautiful. Yeah, lovely. And that is a fairly typical response, that for many people there's this additional calm, additional peacefulness, and more relaxation. But it's a relaxation at a deeper level, because it's not just muscle relax. We're not just going, oh, I feel tense, I'm going to relax these muscles. We're finding the structure of thought. We actually find the eye, which is a thought structure that has been out of consciousness for basically all of us. And once it's in consciousness, though, it actually takes a certain amount of effort and constriction to maintain that I thought. And so when we invite it to dissolve and melt, there's a relaxing at the level of thought that has been unconscious, even unconscious thought, so that now our a relaxation, we experience a kind of relaxation that is prior to muscle tension, but does lead to the muscles relaxing too. So yeah, so for me, what happened, to just share a slightly different version, for me, what happened when I did it is as if things went in a flow, as if there was a draining out from this here, and it kind of flowed, and it's like it all kind of dissolved in and through the body, and there was a distribution that I could no longer track. I couldn't find the particles of whatever was this started disappearing, and I had the sense that there was distribution through the body and perhaps from everywhere from there. I'm not quite sure.
So hello everyone. We just after having done the wholeness work, we just got cut off in a way with the technology here. So in case you're wondering why the picture looks different, we had to dial in again. But we just continue.
So, yes. So I'd like to pick up with everyone, just finishing that short exercise. That's just a little glimpse into the first stage of what the wholeness work is all about. But for some of you, for many people even, that first little glimpse does bring about this shift towards relaxation and the deep peace as you described, Angela. And for me also, I felt a kind of relaxing in my core, I would say. And But I also want to say that if nothing happened for you, that is also perfect. And we get to why that is and what needs to happen when nothing changes in the training itself. Because this work, it's quite profound, as I've come to recognize more. It takes us to this level of experience where force and coercion does not work at all anymore. Um, and this is where I think this fits with what you're talking about, Angela, with conscious leadership. You spoke to me a little bit about conscious leadership, and that many of the people in your community are interested in conscious leadership. And when I think about this conscious leadership, I think, what does this mean anyway? And I think perhaps conscious leadership has to do with we become awake to who we are. And that is this kind of wholeness that happens when these eyes dissolve. So I'm covering ground really quickly here, but it's like when we have this eye, this is actually an inner separation. Because if you think about it, if I say, who are you, Angela? Or you say to me, who are you, Connirae? I'm not going to say, well, I'm this little ball right here, part in and part out of my head. And Angela wouldn't be saying, well, I'm this ball behind here. So there's a sense in which our unconscious thinks we are something that we are not. And this structure of the I is always smaller than the full field of awareness. And that's very interesting, and it's very important, because when our unconscious is operating from who we think we are, this structure of the I, we're trying to solve problems, we're trying to even have fun from this place that is smaller than the truth of who we really are. The wholeness work helps us find these small I thoughts that are always present when we check, and then we go to the second phase of letting them dissolve into the whole. And this results usually in a feeling of more relaxation and peace. But what happens is more significant than that. Because we are now in this space of wholeness where we're literally experiencing the wholeness of our being, it is easier for us to now recognize the wholeness of someone else's being too. And that's a kind of consciousness that we can't really get to on a mental or conceptual level. We can't really fully appreciate the wholeness of another person's being until we find our own I thoughts, and then we let them dissolve and melt into the whole. But that's just phase one in the wholeness work. That's just phase one.
Yeah, and I know there are so many layers and even deeper ways and roots to it from what I learned from you, Connirae. But I have to say, I love this description of how you explain conscious leadership, because, you know, when I try to explain it from my own experience, then whenever I'm in a relationship with myself or with other people, and I feel somehow a contraction or a reaction within myself, where I feel that my awareness somehow gets contracted and is not like free flowing, and then I do the wholeness work, then this is really when something fundamentally shifts, where I have a much more open and free relationship with myself, but also then, of course, with other people. So I can very much relate to when you say, you know, once you feel the wholeness through and within yourself, you can also recognize it in other people. I think there is always this first step of really looking at yourself and start changing yourself with your inner structure and feeling, before you can start making a change happen in the outside world with other people. So
agree wholeheartedly. I agree completely. Yes, and this makes me think also, Angela, about we can often when people have thoughts about conscious leadership or conscious anything, I want to have conscious leadership. Often people attempt to will their thoughts and state into some direction. So So often there are meditations where you just will yourself to have peace or will yourself to be conscious of the whole. And that has limitations because it doesn't do anything with the inner separations that already exist. It becomes a bit of an override on the system. It actually tends to create a little bit of effort and attention. And when instead we find, oh, like you said, if I notice a constriction or a contraction in my consciousness, okay, where's the I who's aware of this, or where's the I who's making this constriction? And then I find it, I invite it to dissolve and melt. And now suddenly I'm just experiencing this wholeness, experiencing this, it's a certain kind of waking up to the consciousness that I am, the full consciousness, not just this small place. And then what happens from there can be sometimes it's so on one hand it's so everyday and ordinary that sometimes people go, well, it's just, it's they say it's everyday and ordinary, and then on the other hand it's quite profound.
And when practicing the wholeness work, what would you say? Because I know there are so many different benefits you can get out of this work. Can you name a few, or also people who do the work over maybe a longer period of time? What do they say what it is for them? And of course, I can also share my own experience.
Yes.
Although I
Yeah.
would say I think I'm practicing since, what is it, 2 or 3 years right now. So I know that you're on a much longer journey with it.
Quite extensive also. So everyone's experience is unique, but some of the common threads, what people say is they become more emotionally intelligent. It becomes easier to read people accurately. And so these are very important skills in a business context and when you're working with a team. It's also important in our personal relationships. It means that we have a way of transforming places we get emotionally plugged in. So this is a very common, people become less emotionally reactive, and not in a way that they feel shut down. Like it's not about shutting off our emotions. It's more like liberating us from the rigidity of a sort of a habitual emotional response that comes out of sort of a narrow way of perceiving the situation. So yeah, our emotional reactivities get transformed, our emotional intelligence, our problem solving ability goes up. We think of creative solutions that we might not have thought of before. And this happens because it's not this small I anymore that's trying to solve it all. Now it's the whole of our being that can solve things for us. People sleep better. This is a really important benefit that many people, almost everyone who does the wholeness work over time says they sleep more restfully, and can sometimes get more resilience even if not sleeping.
I have this experience as well that I often do it before I go to bed or when I'm in bed, to actually be able to sleep and to get rid of all the thoughts that are within me. So I can really relate to that as well, that my sleep has improved a lot. And also my stress level, I would say, I just feel much more relaxed and calm, even in stressful periods. Because I think I can change my life, and it might be always very busy, but I can change the state I go through this busy life, and that has helped me a lot as well.
Great. Yes, so we've been talking a lot about this fundamental deeper change that's sort of like awakening, but it's important to realize that that this is actually solving problems at a deeper level. It's like we go to this level where sometimes this other more surface level doesn't really effectively solve them. So when we go to this deeper level, so many things start solving themselves at home, at work, so on. And the business consultants and executive coaches that I have worked with have told me they really appreciate this because it gives them a way that's very direct. Most people working in a business context, especially executives, they want the fastest, most reliable way to get results. And this is that. It's the the most reliable and fastest, most efficient way to get results that I know of. I think business people also tend to appreciate the precision. You know, it's not mushy. And the book Coming to Wholeness, which I'll just show here, this is now out in German also. You have the German title. Do you want to say that?
I actually don't have it at the moment because I read the English version. But I know it's out in German right now.
Ganzheit, ja?
Ganzheit, ja. Der Weg zur Ganzheit.
Yeah. And so it's out in German now, and I think the translation is very good. I don't know German myself, but I know you, Sebastian, Ralph, other people who've worked with me closely with the wholeness work have gone over it carefully, and the translator I think she put a lot of real a spirit into it. She really, her intention was to do a really high quality translation, and I think she did. And in this book, there are examples of business and executive coaches, and one, a colleague of mine, shall I read what he says?
Yes.
Just a short thing. He says, I work in the business world where the touchy-feely adjective is still the kiss of death. The senior executives I taught the wholeness work to found new clarity, focus, and relaxation. They slept better at night and walked into meetings feeling clear about their goals. They became better listeners, more mature and resourceful leaders. So wow. I think he summed that up really nicely.
Yeah, that's true. So besides the book, Connirae, and I know there are so many free resources also online on your website and also on the European website. So how can people learn more about it? What are upcoming workshops and dates where they can join?
Yes, we have two online. I guess one of the upsides of the pandemic is we've moved much more online. It makes it possible for people around the world to join in from home. So we do have two Wholeness Foundation trainings coming up, and there'll be 3-hour webinars, each of them, and we'll go quite in depth. So this is on our website, AndreasNLP.com. I believe it's also on your website. Can you say what that is, please?
Yeah,
the European. I'm so happy to be working with some very capable colleagues in Europe, especially in Germany and Austria, where the hub has been, but also working throughout the continent. Many people have gotten involved, and so they have a website. You all have a website.
Yeah, we will put all the links in here to the website as well, and to the registration page, so that people can go directly. I think that will be the best way.
That is good. And yeah, and our website, you can see another free introduction if you'd like to start with that. This book, in either English or German, it's both ebook and print book, in both languages now. Japanese is coming soon. And we have people working on translations in several more languages too, as we speak. So
I'm pretty proud that one of the first languages is German that you get it translated to.
Yes, German is the first language. And in part because of your group and the help working with Unforman. And so we now have that. Yeah, I'm very pleased about that. So then, just to give a picture, there is also additional opportunity. The wholeness work, when fully understood, is really almost a whole field in itself. It goes to a lot of depth. What we explored today is just the beginning. It does way more than just help people dissolve the ego. But all of it is precise and it helps get really direct access to many other unconscious structures that are universal. And by transforming at this level, we get fundamental change more quickly. So we can go through, we have now 6 days of live training, of live in-person training sequenced out. And if we move it into online format, it becomes 12 webinars. But we're doing this in blocks, so people can take a part at a time. You can take the first 4 webinars. practice that, and then get the next 4 webinars, practice that, then get the next 4. And there are ways to support people's practice, and the European group is working with supporting people in becoming competent and skilled coaches and trainers of this work. So I'm very pleased to be working with the European group with this.
Yeah, and I think we're all very pleased that you went to Germany. You're still working a lot with all of us in Europe, which I think, it would be easy for you to say, oh, I'm just covering the US because it's very big and big enough maybe. But I feel very pleased that you're also reaching out to Europe, and that we here can be part of it and can also learn from you on that way.
Yeah, well, thank you, and I am also thankful for your. My mission is for the wholeness work to be available around the globe, around the world, to everyone who wants it, because I think our world right now needs this kind of deeper level transformation. And so for me, it's important to be working not just on my own. I'm limited in what I can do on my own, and I know that. So my intention is to be working with a widening group of people that are all coming together to learn together, to grow together, to improve what we do, and to really make the world a better place through this work, to make our own inner psyches a more comfortable place for us to be. Yeah, through this work. And the plan is right now I'll be coming to Berlin live again next year, right, in 2021. As long, cross the fingers that this works.
Definitely.
Yes. And I would encourage everyone interested, join into the online trainings soon that are happening this fall. And then the live in Berlin, don't wait for the live one in Berlin. Come to that then again for the second time through. And that way you'll get it with a lot more depth.
Yeah, and I can support that. It gets deeper and deeper. I know I've done everything at once, live with you, and then coming back to your online courses. And I really feel that, every time it adds and gets deeper and deeper.
It's simple. It's extremely simple on one hand, and so it's possible to engage and begin getting benefits immediately, and that for most people. And then it's also, there's this subtlety and depth and richness to this work because we are shifting our consciousness at such a fundamental level. And what I think is true is that at the level each of us is at now, we can't understand really the next level yet. We can't really get it. And then once we've transformed a little bit, now we get more, we grasp more, and we're able to understand more. And then the farther we go, the more we're able to also understand. And for this is part of the reason why the cycling back through is important. I keep learning too. Every time I teach it, I keep learning.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, Connirae, I want to just say thank you, a very big thank you for that conversation with all the profound insights and the little demonstration. And thank you so much for your time. And I'm really excited sending this out to all the people out there so they can get familiar with the wholeness work and start exploring it themselves.
Thank you so much, Angela. Yeah. Just, I'm so pleased with what you're doing to help share the work. Yeah. You and the team there. Yeah. Thanks to all of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Yes. Bye.